Welcome to Building Healthy Relationships, the 4 Habits podcast, helping you enjoy better harmony at home, thrive at work, and win at life. Here are your hosts, Dr. Andrea and Jon Taylor-Cummings, recognized authorities on the subjects of improving work relationships and cultures, as well as couple and home relationships.
Well, hello and a warm welcome to our guests wherever you are around the world. If it's good morning, good afternoon, good evening, we're very delighted that you're with us for this conversation with somebody we think is a very inspiring person who's invested his life in pouring into the next generation. You're going to hear a little bit more about that, but a warm welcome to you, Chris. Great to have you with us.
Pleasure to be here.
And of course, we want to give you your due introduction so that our guests understand the caliber of person that we're speaking with. So we just want to do a quick bio.
Absolutely.
Background and context.
Always love to do that. So Chris Birch-Evans describes himself as an enthusiast.
And that's true.
And that's absolutely true from the Chris that we know. So he's married, a father of 2 boys, a Cub Scout leader, a volunteer youth worker in his local church. He loves the outdoors, and he is an avid board gamer.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So we'll find out a bit more about that as well, perhaps.
When it matters.
Winning matters.
Winning matters. Oh, I got it. I hear you now. Okay. All right.
That's a skill to have for young people, right?
Yeah. So Chris trained as a teacher, but 27 years ago, he refocused his enthusiasm to start a Christian charity working in secondary schools, aiming to see young lives changed for the better, a very worthwhile cause. So today his charity, STEP, works with over 83% of young people in the schools in his local city. And funding dependent, they aim to be able to offer opportunities to the final 17% this coming year. So that will be the whole city covered. That's just amazing work, and we'll hopefully hear a bit more about that in a moment. Chris has also written a book. He makes a mean bacon and egg cupcake.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
All right, we'll have to hold you to that one.
We won't get to taste it online, but I'm interesting to find out about that as well. And he considers himself an introvert advocate. Now, that's a very interesting definition there. Introvert advocate.
Okay, Chris. So there's so many things in there. You're going to have to unpack it a little bit by giving us the background story, a little bit of insight to, what brought you to the passion that you have now. And then we'll talk about the work that you're doing.
Yeah. What bit do you want the background story on, the cupcake or the board game?
We want to hear about the cupcake, but let's hear about you first.
The introvert advocate, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, well, I just, so my parents are always, they always accused me of being shy. I didn't want parties. I enjoyed my own company, and they said it like there was something wrong. And I've kind of grown up feeling there's something wrong with enjoying being on your own and enjoying your space and having 2 friends, not 20. And realized I met all these other people that thought there was something wrong feeling the same way. And so actually there's nothing wrong with being introverted, liking your own company, getting energy from your thoughts, your ideas, your inside world. And so I've gone around telling people it's okay to be like that. And when we need to, we can engage with large groups of people. We can be entertaining and fun, but we just need to go and then rest
and refuel in your own space.
We've seen you engaging with and entertaining thousands of people on the stage. So absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's it's a great place to start the conversation, because it's such an empowering thing to do, to say to people, to young people in particular, it's okay to be you.
Yeah.
And the world needs you to shine exactly in your space, in the way that you shine. And so what got you into the work that you're doing now with STEP, investing in the lives of all these young people?
Good question. So I trained as a teacher and loved teaching, hated marking. Yeah, very simply put.
Okay.
I hear you.
Loved it. But what I loved was the moment when a young person kind of understands something, gets it, that moment of learning or change. And I love doing it in teaching. But I was choosing my next teaching job next to where there was a church that had good youth work. And I realized that quite quickly, the thing I wanted to do more than the teaching job was the youth work.
Okay.
So I started doing youth work in my local church and loved it. But most of the kids that came to my church kind of didn't want to come to the groups we were running. They were being made to go.
Right.
And it was like, oh, that's a real shame. But whenever I kind of chatted about faith and things in school with my classes, they loved it. And I realized that I was kind of investing the wrong time with the wrong people. So why don't I take the wonders we were trying to do on Sunday with young people who didn't want it to the people who did want it on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And that turned into starting a charity of taking the wonders of church into schools. So, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. That's just so inspirational. And we've seen the work that you do and the engagement that you get from these 16, 17, 18-year-olds. And that's the kind of conversation we want to have with you is how do you, especially for parents of teens in those years when they're not quite an adult yet, but they're adult-like and not quite a child, but they can be childish. How do you keep that engagement in the relationship? How do you navigate those waters? What have you seen and experienced and learned from?
I was going to say, while communicating interesting and important points. Keeping engagement on trivia is fairly easy. You can all sit and watch mindless things together without an issue, I would have thought. But how do you keep that engagement while still communicating important things, challenging things, having those sort of serious, important conversations, really?
I don't know. We empower them, I guess. I had a conversation last night. I met a young lady last night at an event I was at, and she was 17, and her mum was paying for her to learn to drive, which I think is, if I could say that one of the best bits of youth work is giving your children a car. It's terrifying because what they might do with it, but they're growing up, and part of growing up is heading into adulthood and having your own opinions and kind of becoming autonomous. And part of the struggles we have as adults, I think, with our children becoming adults is they're becoming autonomous and they're becoming free of our influence, making their own choices. And we stand by watching thinking we wouldn't do it that way. But it's the natural order, isn't it? They should become adults, and we're feeling threatened by it and worried what they're going to do with it. And this mum was talking about buying her daughter a car, training her to drive, which is really useful because the conflict often happens when they're flexing their emotional muscles and you're feeling threatened by it as an adult. And then you have a dispute, you have a disagreement, and they have nowhere to go as they're still in your space. And so we were chatting about the wonder of having a car as a 17, 18-year-old, where you actually did have your own space and go to another space. So you could just walk out the door and go somewhere, but actually there's something very empowering about it to not feel beholden in your form of travel. So it doesn't really answer your question in some ways, but it's kind of the empowering them to kind of realize that it's okay to grow, to disagree. It's okay to have another opinion, but also allowing them space to escape when it's getting too tense. It was fascinating. And as I talked about this young person growing last night, and her mum was nodding like crazy. I don't think the young person had realised mum knew she was becoming an adult and wanted autonomy.
Right.
So it opened a common ground for a conversation, I guess. So
And that's the hard bit. It's the emotions, isn't it, that get raised in both sides, where one feeling the need to fight for that autonomy and independence and establish themselves, and us as parents feeling the need to keep them safe, and it comes out in the wrong way quite often, in a controlling way. What are some of the themes that you've seen, in your conversations with young people about life, about faith, about future? What are some of the themes that are coming up as things that they're concerned about that we need to be more prepared to talk about as parents?
I love that you said the future. It's what we do. We do a lesson on stress with 15-year-olds going into their GCSEs and with 18-year-olds as they're about to sit their exams. And it's a kind of sorting exercise. You give them a whole pile of things that life throws at you, and they sort them into whether it's stressful or not. And they instantly, when they say exams, they put it as the number one. And they work through them. But we've kind of put words like comfort in there, and your word future, and when you give them space to think, actually what sits above immediate problems like exams are: will I be comfortable? Will I be safe? Will my future be okay? They're kind of they're bigger than exams, but they haven't been given the question or the opportunity to articulate that. So they have bigger concerns than exams. The head girl of one of our local schools was chatting to me a couple of years ago, and we were talking about what do young people think, and she was telling me that she was the COVID had kind of, her language was, COVID hit us like a bus at the traffic lights.
Wow.
It knocked us from the side. And she said, I'm sitting here with exam results I never sat for. She said, I spent 2 years not going to school, which who would imagine that would ever happen in my life? And she said, I don't know if my parents, when they're old, get ill, if the National Health will look after them or not. And she said, and I always was passionate about the environment, but I hear from adults now that it might be too late.
Wow.
She said, when it comes to consent, we still aren't sure what that means in terms of the word no. And then she looked at me and she went, Chris, frankly, we're just scared.
Wow.
Wow.
And I, when you don't listen, you're already composing your response. I'd already got my response, and I was like, the Bible has a lot to say about being afraid. And she looked me straight in the eye and she went, Chris, we're not afraid, we're scared. Of which I kind of felt told off, and then when I'm reflecting, what did she mean? It's like we were using the same word, weren't we? But she corrected me. Afraid is very specific, very focused. It's there lurking in front. You know what it is. She was saying, actually, we live with fear all around, and we can't actually nail it down. It's multiple things. It's an atmosphere that we live in, a culture we live in.
Yeah.
So to understand, I guess, young people are dealing with those. It's not exams at the top of their list. It's all those things.
Yeah. Multiple.
That is such a powerful statement to chew over, because our approach, and I think a challenge that we've experienced as parents, is your teens or your young adults will show up with a concern or a behavior or an attitude that you zero in on, and you want to deal with that thing. But what's underlying all of that is this swirling of emotions around just being generally scared of what's going on. And we've certainly are still learning, trying to practice how do we, instead of zeroing on what we need to fix or correct or deal with, how do we create the space to open up the conversation and get underneath the thing that's showing up and find out what's really going on.
I was just going to say, absolutely. And I don't know whether it's just a dad thing or whether it's just parents in general, but certainly my bias has always been to see a problem. Okay, well, let's fix the problem. Let's jump in there. I'm sure we can help you fix this. But
the behavior.
What we're hearing you say is actually, it's not just one specific thing. It's just a general sense of so many things happening around there. We're just feeling scared. So staying connected. So how do we, I guess the what a lot of the audience, and I'd love to hear personally as well, is what more can we be doing to just stay connected with our young people through these trying times, these challenging times where they're just feeling scared. Any in your reflections, any sort of bright ideas or ways you found to overcome that or achieve that?
I think you're dead right. Stop trying to fix the problem. For me, anyway. I think really listening, really seeking to understand, helping them articulate, almost by your silence and your quizzical view, shows they matter.
Mm.
But it also kind of it kind of shows that you empathize. Brené Brown, when she was talking about shame, said that if you put shame in a petri dish and you bombard it with empathy, it cannot thrive. It is destroyed. But if you hide it in darkness, it will grow and grow and grow. And I find that fascinating around the whole idea of shame in young people anyway. But for you to go to kind of to seek to empathize, to seek to understand, we have common ground. We live in the same world. We both battle with the power of technology consuming our whole lives. There are so many things we have in common with young people that we can naturally empathize with, but the bits we don't, to seek to understand. So my lovely son will shut down conversations with me with the words "you don't understand," and in that moment I am challenged whether to allow him to shut the conversation down or to say, I maybe I don't help me
understand.
see it. Yeah. So
yeah, powerful. That we always talk about those three powerful words: help me understand. Instead of getting frustrated and voicing the frustration, is help me understand, and genuinely meaning it. Gosh, it's going to demand so much of our own emotional intelligence and skill in keeping our default reactions on the wraps to be more present and be more available to listen. What are the things that you're hearing from these young people that they get really frustrated with parents about? Anything, any themes, any clues coming out that we need to pay attention? Screen time.
Not giving autonomy to make decisions. What else do they talk about? That actually a lot. If I'm really honest, a lot of my conversations, because I'm in the context of school, is about parents. Not parents, about their teachers and their teachers kind of trying to funnel them towards achieving goals. So one of the things I would say is a lot of my work is about being unproductive with them, introducing play,
Right.
so they can reconnect. If you think in lockdown, they spent 2 years kind of moving to digital technology to talk to each other, and they forgot how to play together, how to to be bored together, how to kind of just be near someone. So which are qualities and skills. So for me, I think actually some of the things we can do is really connect with young people and play with them and enjoy winning or losing occasionally. The Guardian have just, if you go back about 2 weeks, the Guardian have they wrote this amazing article on what are young people missing, what are they wanting, and they want belly laughs, they want fun. And so I think for us to kind of understand that their world has come a little bit void of some of those experiences. They've been sucked into their digital worlds, which has got loads of fun and lots of laughter, but it's very often on your own rather than shared as a group. And so kind of one of the things my charity is doing is kind of starting all our work with a piece of play somehow. yeah, it's like games are kind of the secret kind of language of youth work at the moment, just to connect you to the person next to you and have a shared experience where you are on equal grounds rather than kind of just viewing and observing someone else having fun.
Wow. That one hit me like a lightning bolt when you said needing to learn to just be near somebody else, because one of my observations, which I'd laughed about, but it's a serious thing going on underneath, is that young people will be sat beside each other and texting each other rather than connecting in real time in the real world.
Yeah.
Wow, that is how do we learn to be near to each other again?
Well, I'm thinking more from a adult-child relationship, whether it's the teacher or the parent, because these are the crucial years. A lot of the kids that you're working with, this is, as you said, GCSEs for our American audience. This is what's that, sort of the early high school, is it?
It's senior high school.
Senior high school, somewhere like that. So these are the final few years before they go off to college over there or university here. This is really where every parent or every teacher just wants to try and get the best out of the child, get them to achieve their potential, make the most of all the things that God has given them in their hands. Let's go use this stuff.
Yeah.
But sometimes you do that at the risk of breaking that connection with the child because it's push to try and get the best, obviously for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they end up rebelling, and no, I don't want that. I just want that connection. Is what I'm hearing you say here. Just maintaining that through maybe even a bit of fun sometimes, just to keep that connection. It's not necessarily saying throw all the advice and the counsel that you want to give them out the window, but it's just finding that balance.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I read in a book called Search for Significance that worth or value and worth is measured by your achievements plus everyone else's opinion of you.
Mm-hmm.
Which sounds true and and appraisal worthy conversations, but when you if you took a beautiful kind of blue-eyed baby and put it on the table and applied that formula to it and it's a week old, then you're saying it's invaluable in the wrong way.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't actually work, as we're all just grown up those little babies, and but we reward our children for doing well in exams or because they've done something that makes them popular. And actually, what do we do when they fail, when they struggle, or when they posted something stupid on social media and everyone hates them? So if we buy into that way of measuring worth, then we're breaking our kids in a way where we're kind of doing a disservice. So we need to celebrate who they are when they're not achieving, and when most people find them annoying, and when we find them annoying, I love my children to bits, but there's sometimes when I don't like them. It's like, why are you doing that? But so in that moment, I can tell them I don't like you doing that. But actually, at the same time, it has to be double stated, I love you as well.
Yeah.
So their worth cannot be measured by their achievements and other people's opinions.
And I think in this day and age of the cancel culture, where it's so easy to be, excommunicated, targeted of some kind of some level of hate on social media, it's even more important to help them understand their self-worth and value for who they are, not for what they do. But I think as adults, we struggle with that message anyway. So how do we become better at communicating it to our kids?
Yeah. Is that a question?
I don't know. It's a kind of question reflection. I'm talking out loud, but what thoughts does that provoke for you?
No, I agree. I agree. It's ingrained, isn't it, to reward good behavior?
Yeah.
And to join in and celebrate when someone is renowned.
Yeah.
But
But that's why I loved where you started the conversation. Introvert was the example.
Yeah.
But it's that message of it's okay to be different and it's okay to be you. And how can we get better at hearing that ourselves as adults, as parents, and especially communicating that to our children in a
Yeah.
world in which it's airbrushed images and everything, perfect lives being thrown at them. Real life is nothing like they're being fed daily on social media.
Yeah.
Um, so what would you say to parents, to parents parenting 16, 17, 18-year-olds, preparing for exams, going off to uni, some of them? What would you say to parents dealing in this, this swirling storm of emotions and fear and so
I'm just
on?
going to say, maybe even before you get to that, have you had any examples of seeing that, maybe even in a school setting, I guess, because of the work that you do, of young people who are going through some of these challenges, but there's been somehow they've managed to break through. There's been a breakthrough, been able to connect, and because I guess that's what people. An example I think might help, if you have any, might help bring it
Yeah.
to life for people who are saying, look, you don't understand my Charlie. That's all good. That's all interesting
Yeah.
theory, but you just don't know what I'm dealing with here. If you
Okay.
have a story, I think that maybe might
Yeah.
resonate with people of challenges overcome. That I think might be an awesome way to start.
I quite enjoy celebrating failure, but kind of not as a shame thing, but actually, well done for trying to do something you didn't know if you could do. We run a course on leadership for most of the senior students in our area. They come on our courses. Their schools let us come in and teach it, and the ones that walk in and do really, really well and sort of breeze through everything have learned nothing because they've done what they can already do.
Yeah.
But the ones that kind of take a risk and fall on their chin, firstly, they don't want to get up. And secondly, they don't want anyone to know. So kind of you can allow that to happen a little bit, but on the quiet, to go and to be deeply proud of them and to be very specific about what they did so well and why they did so well and how much more admirable that was than someone who just walked into the room and delivered an excellent 3-point talk. So for me, I think it's celebrating failure and recognizing that life is full of those, and you're not really living if you aren't falling on your chin occasionally. But not to do it in a kind of public, shameful way, but to kind of sit down and really to celebrate, tell them how proud you are. But I think specifics really matter. If not, young people kind of have a lot of people that just tell them you can change the world. And then there's no specifics, and they look at the world and think, well, we can't solve the NHS, global warming, all the things that I mentioned earlier that this young person was like, what do I do? But to be really specific and say, this is what you did so well, and it's one step forward, I think it is kind of has a level of reality and honesty to it that young people really, really respond to. So for me, I could tell you some stories. It always feels hard as they're quite personal, but I think we spend a lot of our time around where someone has taken a risk. I'll tell you one as it's a fairly safe one. There in the student leadership team, this young lady was bold enough to put herself forward to be voted as a student leader. She got a friend to read her speech as she could not cope with the space. But her kind of argument was, I'm not going to be a good upfront person, but I am an administrative genius, and the people I'm working with are really good up front, but they can't organise for toffee. That was kind of her speech.
Interesting.
And she gave it to her friend to read for her, and the school, the kids, the head teacher all voted for her to be on their student leadership team. But my job was to teach them levels of oracy, and she actually had to still learn to do a talk. And we sat down and we talked through it, And we told them that a good talk has a fact, so it's foam, a fact, an opinion, an anecdote, and a metaphor.
Okay.
And it's like you put them in any order, but you do that, you will do a talk that you will grab every person on one of those aspects. And she was still very reticent, kind of, I can't do this. And she went away and she wrote something, and I read it and was like, oh, that's amazing. And she was like, will you read it for me? And I was like, no, I'll stand next to you.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, you're not going to do it to 200 people. You're doing it to a small group. We all love you. And if you get up there and then can't do it, then maybe I'll say the first word and you say the next, but let's do it together. And she was like, okay. And so she got up, and they had to talk about anything. So I just done talk on board games. So you get the kind of level of practicing foam, the oracy skill. And she got up, and I can still remember what she said. It was that powerful. She said this, do you remember in primary school when we learnt about dinosaurs? And then she paused, gathered herself, and she said, unless we do something about the environment, and we do it soon, we'll be talking about polar bears in the same way.
Oh, wow.
And she sat down.
Wow.
So I was like, you can do as many as you want and you'll get all the change you want. It was just, everyone else was 2-3 minutes, lots of, they all followed foam, but she did it her own way, very clearly, and the kind of the metaphor, the anecdote is just
Yeah.
It's very
Just
powerful.
looking at the 4 points there.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So what I'm hearing is, when they're going through those challenges, just identify what it is that they're really struggling with, and then go alongside and sort of work through. Can't sweep it under the carpet, but just work through at their pace. And get them to overcome.
But, there's even a bigger mindset shift. We clearly need to do it for young people. But I think in this world that we live in, where no one person has all the answers anymore, no one boss can instruct the team on what to do. You really need all the minds coming together. We all need to get better at failure and learning from failure. But that takes a culture shift to allow the space to acknowledge failure without blame and finger pointing. And that's what I hear you saying we can do more of at home, is to make it safe to fail as long as you're learning from failure. You're not just accepting substandard anything. You're saying you're valuable, you tried, what can we learn so that next time you can get it a bit better, if not completely winning.
And some were saying violin is not for you. It's like, let's try something else. Because guitar was for them. So
exactly.
It's I think our generation are very, very protected. Our young people there, and people aren't telling them that you can't do that. And actually, I think the honest kind of, you tried, you failed, you don't have these qualities. These are what we see. We've the whole kind of move for talking about neurodiverse is very useful in that actually we've recognized there's some things people struggle with, but actually they are extraordinary in other spaces.
And other
Absolutely.
things,
So it's like we've actually mastered it in many areas, and maybe as teachers, youth workers, parents, to see the strength that is hidden behind what are perceived weaknesses in other areas.
Look for the light.
We refer to that as superpowers in the work that we do. What are your superpowers? Because they'll be there somewhere. Everybody has them. And they'll be different to the people around you, but most of us are trained to look for particular superpowers and actually put value only on those ones, when actually there's value in all of them.
Especially now, and we need all of them to be able to deal with what's coming at us in the world, in challenges, in the economy, in climate change and everything. We need all the different thinkings. So let's can we go back to that question now then? So what else would you say to parents navigating this world of turmoil and helping, well, seeing that their children, their young adults are also navigating that world? How would you encourage them to manage that?
I read a book. This is very odd. I read a book when I was a teenager called The Good Enough Mother.
Okay.
I'm not going to tell you how I got to reading that book.
Why? Well, go on.
But I threw it across the room quite often. It made me quite angry. But it was, and I'm not a mother, and never had to kind of wrestle with some of the things implied in being a mother. But it was kind of trying to help mothers think through how do I do a good job and do the best by my children, and actually that good enough is good enough. We're valuable and they're valuable, so you can't do any more than your best. And what does good enough look like? And so I guess I'd say actually to not give up and to kind of to give your best and recognize good enough is good enough is really, really useful for me as a dad. As I'm as an introvert, I'm often going back and reflecting over conversations and then beating myself up, thinking I could have done that, I could have done this. When my children get angry, which they do, it shuts me down. Introverts get shut down when someone gets angry. Susan Cain says it's like some countries foreign policy, lots and lots of missiles and attacks, and everyone kind of hides. And I think introverts, when they are shouted at and people are angry with them, we just kind of shut down, and then afterwards we get really, really annoyed. So I think for me, as I walk away and think, how did I do and what I do? Actually, the first thing I need to tell myself is that actually what I did in those moments of kind of remaining calm, being reasonable, trying not to be drawn in, those were the good enough things to do.
Those were very good enough.
But we're such big self-critics. So I'd say that. And the second is probably often to lead with self-disclosure with your children on that you struggle too. You struggle with losing 40-50 minutes on social media when you knew it was annoying, but you just didn't have the willpower to carry on because they saw you doing it anyway. So you to go, I fight this, and do you know what, you can shout stop using your thumb at me as well as me shouting at you about it. So I think it's kind of self-disclosure for whatever it is that you're struggling with, whether it's kind of snacking when you're sad, shouting when you're angry, kind of hiding when you're feeling threatened. That they kind of subconsciously know that, but for you to go, do you know, I find this hard. If I think you teach. There was a phrase that someone taught me once, which is we teach people how to treat us. And I think if you are wanting your children to mature, grow well, and to have honesty and self-reflect, and kind of treat you as their mentor, their guide, their parent, someone who's got something that they need to get through the next stage, you need to kind of be worthy of their respect and worthy of their listening, which probably means that you need to be self-disclosing on how you struggle living in the same world as them, and this is what you're doing about it, and these are your great wins they can celebrate, but this is when you had a bad day and ate the whole bag of Revels like I did last week. And they went, "Where's the Revels, Dad?" And I had, I could have said, I took them to work and gave them to my team, or I could tell them the truth. Yeah. So
self-disclosure, so powerful to share that humanity with them, rather than always telling off from the top, coming alongside and saying, this is tough for me too. Really powerful.
And even if we have worked them out, when remembering back to the times before we worked them out can be helpful, I'm guessing. Help them see this, we're people, we're all learning, growing, work in progress.
So how can parents look after themselves so that they have this abundance of empathy and patience and understanding and self-control to give. Because I read somewhere, while you think of the answer, one of the psychologists explaining that when young people are growing into adulthood, there's a part of the brain that's under construction, the rational reasoning thing, and they do a lot of thinking with their amygdala, which is the fight or flight, and so everything comes out like a fight or an argument. That takes just understanding that that's what's going on helps build empathy. But in the moment, if you're tired after a long day or hungry or whatever, it might not come out right. So what would you say to parents to just prepare themselves to turn up better in these moments that will come?
Or maybe even to teachers. I'm guessing it's the same message all around.
It's impractical. It's really impractical. It's like you need a huge holiday before every encounter, don't you?
And after.
Maybe we can get that on the NHS.
Well, I think in some countries there is some provision in certain ways, so we just may need to move. We do inset days for teachers, and one of the activities we do is called buckets. And if you imagine you have an emotional bucket, you kind of analyze your day and work out in your day what are you doing, and how full does it make your bucket? So making breakfast, going to the gym before work, having that drive to work on the phone call, or listening to some reflections or a podcast, your cup of tea in the office. It kind of really break your day down into all the things you do, and on each one, kind of, if there was a bucket, how full, how empty does it do it? And then what about your weekly pattern? What are the weekly things you do? So Monday night I take one of my children to Army Cadets. Tuesday I'm a cub leader. Wednesday what are my weekly rhythms that are, and do they fill me, do they empty me, to what extent? Monthly, same thing, and then annually. And then kind of a little bit of maths, just looking at your buckets, and you can work out if you're turning up to daily, full, empty, drained, and how do you intentionally put more of the things in your life that fill you? And there's kind of a kind of weightedness to it as well. So your summer holiday maybe actually fills you far more than your cup of tea on your Saturday morning. So do you actually just need more of those holidays more frequently, less expensive? What could you do to give you a rhythm that you are maintaining a more full life? But it's just I would suggest being intentional about it is helpful. So I get up at 6 and I go in our garage, which we call the gym, and 40 minutes on my own in there is kind of worth 4 bags of Revels. In many ways, there is something that refuels me, gives me energy, that fills my bucket so much, that allows me to have the difficult conversations at work, allows me to hold my line when I'd rather give in, and allows me to kind of be quiet with my helpful advice to my children, and because as soon as I give it, I don't understand. So why would I even offer it yet? But if I don't do my gym, or if I don't have my bag of Revels, or my 3 cups of tea, if I don't do those, then I'm going to plow in and ruin my time with him.
So that is so powerful. What a gift to all of us, to the audience, to just really think about moment by moment. What are we doing? Is it filling that, or is it draining it? And what does that leave us with when we turn up to people who matter most to us?
And how can we be intentional about planning that out, as you say, for the year, week, day, month, whatever it is, making sure you've got enough in there so that when the pressure is on, the better person turns up.
And I suppose what we're saying is if you're really depleted and if you need a fast hit, go on holiday.
I think we will.
If that does it
If
for
that
you.
does it for you, absolutely.
No,
Or
that's
spend a whole
wonderful.
day in the gym or a spa day or whatever it is. But whatever it is that does it for you, go
Yeah.
with that.
And
Yeah.
it made me think of a corollary to that. Chris, I'll see what you think about it. We have intentionally created pajama days because sometimes life is just too
We say
full.
we as a family.
We as a family.
Yeah.
So we have days where we prepare for it. Everybody knows this is the pajama day. We make sure the fridge is stocked and everything that needs to be sorted is sorted. So nobody has to do anything and we don't need any alarm, just to create that space to refuel our own buckets and turn up nicer and get rest.
Yeah, love that. I'm gonna steal that.
Yes, steal it. We plan it in the diary, in all the business on the holiday. This is a pajama day.
Well, I guess the reason we needed that, or we identified we needed it, is we are socialites, I guess. And we'll always say yes if somebody says, "Oh, can you come and do this?" We'll say yes, and we'll go, and actually we'll enjoy it. But then we'll come back, and after the whole lot of them, you just feel you're drained,
just tired.
So unless we actually, so white space, we found white space in the diary for us is not a good thing. So actually, putting in pajama day means it's no longer white space, but it means we will get rest.
We're not
otherwise
available.
It's white space, it's available, and we'll end up doing something else, which we'll enjoy, but we'll come back feeling drained at the end of it.
And take it out on each other. So
put our pajama days in there.
Wow.
So much more I'm sure we can talk about, Chris, but I'm conscious we're running out of time. We're out of time, really.
Any final thoughts, anything that you wanted to share that we've not touched on yet, just to leave? Yeah,
I think earlier when I said we teach people how to treat us, I had a really bad day in school once, and I was going to quit and all the rest of it. And I went to my coach and I told her, and she looked at me and then empathetically said, "You know, it's partly your fault." And I was like, "Pardon?" And she said, "You know, they probably were a horrible class and they probably were evil." And she said, "But it's partly your fault." And this phrase, "we teach people how to treat us," she said to me, she went, "Chris, you know, you teach people how to treat you, and you're partly responsible. It's like you didn't teach them what you wanted from them." And I was quite frustrated at her, as I just wanted to kind of hug and "Don't worry, Chris."
Exactly.
But it stuck with me that actually we spend a lot of our time thinking things are other people's faults. It's our children's fault. It's, you know, it's my boss's fault. It's them. But we can't change our children and we can't change our boss. Actually, the only people we can kind of influence is ourselves. So to actually to think, right, how do I let my children or my boss or whoever, my class, know what I want from them is my responsibility to kind of establish that. So I want to have robust conversations with you, my child. I don't want you to shout at me. You know, we teach people how to treat. So kind of, and I think it's wasted energy blaming someone else often. We kind of need to own the bits we can invest in ourselves. So for me, that's kind of been I try and say it with every teenager I meet because they like to blame people and say it's everyone else's fault. But actually for them to own, this is my part and this is the only bit I can change, is really powerful, as it puts the onus on you and you not running away and backing away and thinking it's someone else. So we teach people how to treat us, to kind of own our part. And if you feel dissatisfied in a relationship, then you need to, in whatever ways you can, help them understand what you really would like from that relationship.
Yeah. Push past the frustration and get to the ask is what we like to say. And that's really powerful.
Yeah.
We teach people how to treat us.
I think there's some more to unpack in that in terms of actually in practical terms. What does that mean? How do we do that? But such a powerful takeaway.
Yeah, well, the bucket, listening well and knowing the turmoil they're feeling, this chaos in the environment as well, which is making them scared. So much to reflect on and think about. But Chris, Thank you. Really, I said to everybody at the beginning that you're such an inspiring person. We could listen to you all afternoon, but we know we have to let you go. So maybe for another day, save some for another day. But thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Absolute pleasure.
And so to our audience around the world, we say thank you for joining us again today. Hopefully you've been inspired. Lots and lots of great takeaways in there.
Oh, one more thing is
how
do
before we go,
we
if
connect?
people wanted to find out a bit more about you and the work that you do, step work, where can they go? We will put a link in the show notes, but if you just wanted to share.
Just come to our website, stepschoolswork.org.uk. Most of our work's on Facebook because older people use Facebook. You might like our Instagrams, but they're probably aimed at slightly younger people. Stepschoolswork.org.uk.
Stepschoolswork.org.uk.
Thank you so much. We'll put that in the show notes. But again, thank you. And thanks to our audience for being with us on this episode, and look forward to seeing you again next time.
It's a wrap.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed that episode. And if you did, and you want to hear more, the best thing to do is subscribe. Then you'll never miss an episode. There's a new one every Friday. You can stay connected with us on social media at The 4 Habits for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and to participate in discussions related to the show. We always love to hear from you. And of course, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review on your preferred platform to allow us to reach more listeners and help people around the globe radically transform the way they do relationships so they too can enjoy better harmony at home, thrive at work, and win at life.